Here we go again then, folks. We've previously holidayed forward 100 years into the future and 200 years into the future. Both those videos are on the channel. You'll be able to find them down in the description in the top corner of the screen, all the usual places. And for today's video, we've just kept going. We have now holidayed 300 years into the future on Football Manager 2021 to see what the world looks like in the distant future. Hello folks and welcome back to another FM21 in the future video. I'm Kev, and coming up on this video we are going to be looking at the state of the footballing world 300 years in the future, as ever, with the disclaimer that it's very England focused, because in order to get 300 years worth of holiday doing by this stage, we're still in the beta, for goodness sake. I couldn't load more than just the one country. We prioritized speed over comprehensiveness. So maybe later in the year, we'll load a few more and have a look at it with a few more countries loaded. But for now, we're on a race to 1,000 years in the future, and hopefully we'll get there before the game crashes. If all of that sounds like something you're interested in, please make sure I'm telling you to do I'm doing the symbol for thumbs ups. Do that by all means to show me you want more of these videos. What I was actually going to say is make sure you subscribe to the channel, notifications on, all that kind of stuff, so you know when 400 years in the future drops, and also, of course, all the other daily Football Manager videos, both Let's Plays and the guide tutorial-y type stuff. Whenever any of that appears on the channel, you'll be the first to know if you're subscribed, and that's all anybody wants. We all just want to be the first to know. So shall we dive into things then? It seems traditional at this point that we always start with the World Cup. So we'll head to the World Cup first of all. If you remember from the last video, the English Premier League, despite England continuing to dominate international football, the English Premier League had dropped down to being only like the 30th highest reputation league in the world. So it's going to be interesting to see what impact that's had on England as an international team. As you can see, not much. England still making it to the World Cup in 23-18. If we have a look through the past winners, specifically focusing in on the last 100 years, you can see it's still very much European dominance. And although the USA are in there with a World Cup win in 23-02. Americans, how do you feel if the first time you win the World Cup is in nearly 300 years? But there's also a decent number of English wins in there still. Wales coming in with another win. Looks like there was a good Swiss team for a little while. Brazil finally picking up a win. The rest of the world seems to be catching up with this 250, 300 years of total European dominance. England are still the most successful team in World Cup history, with now 27 World Cup wins, but it does seem like the rest of the world might be catching up. I'm just going to have a look at the England squad. Now, obviously, these players aren't going to mean anything. The reason, and it's going to take a while to load, the reason we're looking isn't necessarily to see the players. It's more to see where they're playing. Are they playing in the Premier League, or are they all playing abroad? Now, I need to make sure I actually pick this sensibly. Here we go. So, England teams in the England squad. We've got Man United, Sheffield United, Paris Saint-Germain, Real Madrid, Sheffield United, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain. You're spotting who the big teams are. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Galatasaray, Paris Saint-Germain, Barcelona, Chelsea, Sheffield United, Dortmund, Sevilla, Man City, Portsmouth, Man United, Man City, Sheffield United, Real Madrid, and QPR in at the bottom there. Good job I scrolled, QPR fans. So it's not that England are just pumping out players and then they're all going to play in other countries. There was a bit of speculation in the comments on the last one that England might have turned into like the Brazil of the future, where they churn out wonder kids constantly, but they all go and play in the larger leagues. It looks like there's it's not Premier League dominance the way it is in real life now, but probably half of that squad is still players who are based in the Premier League, which is interesting. I find that interesting. Let's have a look at the European Championships as well. The European Football Championships. England, holders of that. Again, going back over the last 100 years, England have started to win it by the looks of it. Wales getting in as well. Again, we had that period of time where Switzerland were doing particularly well. But England really looking like they've dominated the last 100 years by and large, and have now surpassed Spain as the most successful team in European Football Championship history with 16 wins for England. So with England continuing to dominate international football, as you would expect when England is the only nation that I've got loaded, it's going to be interesting to see if the Premier League is still ranked really low. So let's have a look. Premier Division, English Premier Division, and still ranked 29th in the world. Now, again, last time there were a few people saying, Kev, they've all got the same reputation. So let's see if that's the case. Because if we've got 4.5-star reputations all the way down, there is going to be huge fluctuation in this each year. As you can see, Serie A went from 10th to 3rd in a year. The Czech First Division went from 11th to 7th. The Croatian First Division, 23rd to 11th in a year. So we do get major fluctuations because they are all relatively similar on 4.5 stars. There's the Premier League. And in fact, the Premier League, I don't know if you can see that, the Premier League is top of the best of the rest. It's actually only a 4-star reputation for the Premier League, down at the 29th most reputable league in the world. But there is actually a difference. There's 28 nations or 28 leagues that have 4.5-star reputation. And then England, the English Premier League, 4-star reputation. So it's not just the fact that England were having an off year before, or the Premier League was having an off year. It genuinely is a lower reputation than all these other leagues. So the Scottish League is up there as the 4th biggest league in the world. It'd be interesting to see if there's any second divisions getting in before the Premier League, because that really would hammer home how desperate things are getting for England. It doesn't look like that's the case. Ligue 1 all the way down there as well. But it looks like these are all top flight divisions. I don't think there are any second divisions on there. So I guess there's that. It'd be interesting as well to see how far down the Championship is below the Premier League. So the Championship down to a 3-star reputation. Right, let's have a look at the Premier League, have a look at some of the past winners, see if it's still being dominated by the Sheffield teams, and also see if the Sheffield teams have managed to win a Champions League, because that was the one odd thing last time. We had years of domination for Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United, but neither of them had ever won a Champions League. You can see Sheffield United still very much look like they're in a position of dominance. Sheffield Wednesday maybe not so much. We'll just look at the past winners of the Premier League. So yeah, it's basically, if you're not a Sheffield or a Manchester team, don't bother. Or actually, throw London into the mix. Sheffield, London, Manchester. Was that what it was last time as well? If we look, when was the last time a team from outside Sheffield, London, or Manchester won the Premier League? We're going back a while. My goodness, we're still going. Oh my word. We're still going. Bournemouth in 2185. So getting on for 150 years since a team from outside London, Sheffield or Manchester won the Premier League. Liverpool fans, it has all gone wrong for you. If we have a look at the records, most times Premier League's winner is Chelsea with 117 Premier League wins now. So despite not really having any noticeable period of being really dominant, the dominance seems to come in waves. The one constant seems to be that Chelsea are always in and around it. I mean, there was a 12-year spell there where Sheffield Wednesday won it every year. But Chelsea always there or thereabouts. They linger. They're lingerers, Chelsea. Let's have a look to see who we've got in the Premier League, see if we've got any unexpected teams. I mean, for me, the most unexpected thing about seeing the Premier League 300 years in the future is how relatively normal it looks. There's not any... Maidstone. I was going to say there aren't any current non-league teams in there, but Maidstone are in there, and it looks like they've been a bigger team for quite a long time now, certainly the last 20 or 30 years or so. Crewe are still hanging around up there. Crewe have been a big team for a little while now. But not only have we had the dominance from London, Manchester and Sheffield, neither Liverpool or Everton even in the Premier League. So Merseyside is just disintegrated. No sign of any North East teams, no Newcastle, no Sunderland. It is very much focusing in on London, Yorkshire, Lancashire, because you've got Rotherham in there as well. I say Yorkshire, you've got Rotherham in there. There's Burnley in there as well as Lancashire. Derby, Derby and Forest representing the Midlands. Crewe, does Crewe count as Northwest? It's probably Northwest, isn't it? Ipswich are in there too. Maidstone's Kent, isn't it? I don't know why I'm trying to tie geography into this. I don't think it makes a blind bit of difference. Let's jump down to the Championship. Liverpool are coming back to the Premier League, boys and girls. Liverpool have won promotion back to the Premier League. How long has it been? I noticed Tottenham getting promoted here as well, so we'll check in on them too. So it's now been over 200 years since Liverpool won the Champions League. And okay, they're basically West Brom. They bounce back and forth between the Championship and the Premier League. And what a future for Liverpool. Tottenham also returning back to the Premier League, who do a similar kind of bouncing back and forth between the two. Any other unexpected teams? At Newcastle, people always seem to lose. They don't seem to be able to find Newcastle when we're looking at these. So there's Newcastle. We're going to keep an eye out for Everton as well, who I've not noticed anywhere yet. Bromley up in 7th place in the Championship. Anyone else super unexpected? I mean, there's a smattering of non-league teams in there, as you would probably expect. But no sign of Everton just yet. Are they going to be the biggest club that's fallen the furthest? The League One playoff final, we've had South Shields beating Fulham. It's interesting to see Bournemouth down here back in League One, when Bournemouth, if you remember, are the last team outside of those three cities to have won the Premier League. So Bournemouth have had some success in this universe, but over the last 20 years or so, seem to have fallen on hard times, dropping down to League One for the first time in hundreds of years. And they have bounced straight back up. In fact, they haven't. They lost in the playoffs. So Bournemouth really are having a period of struggle. There's Everton. We found Everton languishing down in League One, where they've been for a little while. They've fallen as far as League Two on a few occasions. Doesn't look like they've fallen out of the Football League at any point, but Everton not having a very fun future. Cambridge up there higher than my team, Peterborough, who we haven't found yet. This is a worry. They'd fallen down into non-league last time. Leeds still knocking about in the in League One. They are the biggest team in Leeds now. Oh, people were upset last time when I said Harrogate was in Leeds. Goodness me. Okay, Harrogate's not in Leeds, but we can all agree Chorley's in Manchester, right? To the comments section. Wickham have been very up and down in this history. They don't seem to be able to settle anywhere. And they've gone into non-league. They've been up into the Championship. They've gone everywhere in between. It's basically the Wickham we've had for the last 30 years in real life. Just they continue to do it forever. Just bouncing around leagues and never really finding a permanent home. If we go down into League Two, we're basically hunting for Peterborough now. That's Southampton have been relegated out of the Football League. There's your headline from League Two. I don't know if this is a first for them. It looks like this is the first time they've fallen out of the Football League. Are they the first Premier League team that we've seen do that? We'll obviously have a look when we get into the National League, see if there's any more already down there. But Southampton getting relegated largely because of a 12-point deduction for going into administration that you can't see because it's behind my head. But they have had a 12-point deduction. Without that, they would have been safe. But Southampton absolutely coming apart at the seams. It seems terrible. Brentford going back up. You've got Bolton in here. Any other bigger teams? Not really. We need to look in non-league. We're hunting for both Peterborough and Premier League teams now. So good to see McDonald's in the non-league. Bad to see Posh down in the non-league though. And now we're looking for former Premier League teams. Not former Premier League teams in the shape of the likes of Swindon. We're looking for teams who are in the Premier League now who have maybe fallen all this way. It doesn't look like there's any particularly big teams in there. Your only real surprises, I guess, would be Milton Keynes, Peterborough, Luton, maybe Preston. Preston, I guess, are a big shock to see them still in non-league because they were down in the non-league last time, I think. They've just been a non-league team forever now. People can't remember Preston being Preston in the Championship. There's 8 generations of kids who just laugh at the notion of it. Let's drop down to the National League North. Sunderland in the National League North. There's a headline for you. What on earth has gone on at Sunderland? Because I think there was a period where they did make it back to the Premier League in one of the earlier videos. Yeah, as recently as 60 years ago, Sunderland were in the Premier League and having a lovely time. I remember making a deal with Sunderland fans on one of the earlier videos. If it takes you 40 years to get back into the Premier League, but then you stay there forever, do you take it? So many Sunderland fans took that deal. Little did they know they weren't staying there forever. They had a future where they ended up in non-league, and not just not ending up in non-league. For the majority of the last 25 years, they've been a non-league team, and now down in the National League North. Although they have won the playoffs, they haven't won the. Why do I keep thinking teams have won the playoffs? They haven't. The team I'm starting non-league to legend with this year, Kettering. Good to see no change for them in 300 years. This is going to give you some context for how much of an achievement it'll be if I get Kettering promoted in non-league to legend starting next week, because 300 years and the AI can't do it. Yikes. Lincoln down there in non-league, as are Northampton. I mean, that's beautiful. That makes seeing Peterborough in the National League it's bearable if we've got Northampton in the National League North. And we'll just have a look at the South as well, see if there's any surprises in there. I think Sunderland have probably got the biggest standard deviation. Someone want to do the maths? The biggest standard deviation of any club throughout this save, having gone from League One to the Premier League to the National League North and everywhere in between over the course of 300 years. No other team seems to have had that much of a rise then fall, or fall then rise, or whatever it might be, unless it's someone who's kind of slipped through the net during those 100 years that we don't really track. I mean, you could conceivably have had Manchester United drop down to that level and come back up again, and we just won't have noticed it because we're not really tracking that. Right, Champions League. Real Madrid won the Champions League, beating Copenhagen in the final. We're looking for really unusual Maribor. I think they'd won it before. Aberdeen in there as well. Aberdeen have won it quite a few. Are Aberdeen the biggest team in Scotland now? Is that a thing? Where's the Scottish Premiership? Aberdeen have won the Scottish Premiership 235 times. Aberdeen have won the Scottish Premiership. I mean, you hear Celtic and Rangers squabbling about 10 in a row. Aberdeen have won 118 in a row. They are Scotland. And not only that, they're winning the Champions. They've won the Champions League 8 times as well. Wow. Okay. That's I guess that's unexpected. Anyone else particularly unexpected? Not as unexpected as that, that's for sure. Goodness me. Let's have a look at past winners. So Real Madrid still won it more times than anybody else. Only 39 though. How many do they have in real life? They must be into double figures, surely. So for them to have only won it less than 30 times in 300 years shows just how difficult it is to dominate Europe. Although we've got teams that are dominating their own nations, because of the nature of how the league's constantly mixing around, no team is dominating the Champions League. We'll just look at the Europa League as well, just to see the nearly men. Yeah, there's a lot of mix of different teams in there. Paris Saint-Germain winning it once, which is almost as interesting as Aberdeen winning the Champions League. The other thing people wanted to see was European coefficients, just to see how the coefficients work in the future. Now, I'm going to have to remember how to get to them. I don't think they're easy to search for, but if we go, that's what we want, isn't it? No, that's not it. Qualification places. So, England, this might be why Sheffield United are not winning the Champions League, because England are getting one Champions League qualification spot and they're entering at the Champions Path first qualifying round. So that's why English teams aren't winning it anymore. They need to fight back up here and get some decent qualification spots again. The teams, the big four, Spain, Belgium, Greece and Germany, Scotland and Italy a little bit behind that. So really, you would expect the winners each year to come from one of those 6, unless they're massively varying around, as we've seen them do. I guess this is going up and down all the time. If we look how close together some of these coefficient ratings are, certainly in amongst those top 7, I mean, Spain have pretty much got top spots sewn up, but the other 6 can pretty much vary at any time if they have a particularly good year or a particularly bad year. There you go. If you want to go into this in a little bit more depth, because people always say, Kev, what about this club? What about that club? I have been asked about going through this on a Twitch stream, and I am going to do it tonight. 7 p.m. on Twitch, twitch.tv/LOLLUJO. We're going to do a stream just dedicated to going through the 300 years in the future save. And there is going to be future videos as well as we go 400, 500, etc. Like I say, until the game crashes. But if you want to really go into the weeds on the 300 years in the future, if you come over to Twitch tonight, I'll pretty much look at anything, search for anything, bearing in mind we're not going to be able to really look into individual leagues. I mean, like we saw how we could do it with Scotland. They're just not loaded, but I guess it does declare winners. So there's plenty we can look at. Come and join me on Twitch tonight, and we'll have a little explore of the save together. Hopefully you have enjoyed that video, though. If you have, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos and to not miss out on the rest of this series. And thank you very much for watching.